Paliwanag nga kung anong ibig niyong sabihin.
The court hereby finds all the accused guilty beyond reasonable doubt of the crime of rape with homicide.
Hindi po naman totoo yan, nagbibiro lang po ako nun.
Sa dami kasi ng pasa ni Allan, hindi to pwedeng makuha niya sa pagkabagsak. Buong base nung ulo ni Allan Gomez, durog lahat yun, basag lahat yun.
It's around 9:15 when we separated. Sabi ko nga sa kanya, huwag na siyang lumabas. Tapos sabi naman niya sa akin, hindi sasaglit na ako, pupuntahan ko lang si Gina.
In 1995, 2 young lives were brutally taken in a crime that would shake the nation to its core. Eileen Sarmenta, a university student with a bright future ahead of her, and her companion, Allan Gomez, were abducted, tortured, and murdered. What initially seemed like a senseless act of violence soon unraveled into a web of dark conspiracies involving political power, corruption, and deceit. But was it truly just a random crime, or was there something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface? Eileen Sarmenta was not just any student. She was a young woman filled with promise and ambition. At just 19 years old, she was already making a name for herself as a standout student at the prestigious University of the Philippines. Known for her intelligence, passion for learning, and desire to make a meaningful difference, Eileen was a beacon of hope for those who knew her. Her family and friends saw her as someone with everything ahead of her, destined for greatness. Beyond her academic achievements, Eileen was a warm, caring individual who had a deep love for her family and friends. She shared a special bond with her mother, who admired her strength and resilience. Her friends often described her as compassionate and selfless, always willing to lend a helping hand. She wasn't just a bright student. Eileen was a young woman who cherished life and had a future brimming with possibility. But on the night of June 28, 1995, everything changed. What began as a regular evening turned into a horrifying nightmare that neither Eileen nor Allan could have anticipated. The two were traveling through Calauan, Laguna, an area they were familiar with. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary as they made their way down a quiet, dark road. At approximately 8:30 p.m., they were ambushed. Armed men suddenly appeared out of nowhere, forcing Eileen and Allan out of the car. Terrified and confused, they had no chance to defend themselves. In an instant, their lives would be irrevocably changed. The two were kidnapped and taken to a remote location. Eileen and Allan were subjected to 2 hours of unimaginable torture. The brutality of the attack left even seasoned investigators horrified. At first, the authorities had no clear suspects and no obvious motive. Was this a crime of passion, a random act of violence, or could it have been something darker, a carefully orchestrated and calculated act of brutality? The questions seemed endless, but the answers were nowhere to be found. When their bodies were discovered in an abandoned area, the full extent of the cruelty became clear. The two had been victimized in the most brutal and shocking manner. Allan was separated from Eileen and subjected to brutal and degrading treatment. He was severely beaten by the kidnappers, who did not hesitate to inflict pain on him. Allan was struck repeatedly, his body left bruised and battered. Eileen was separated from Allan, and the abduction quickly escalated into unimaginable brutality. She was subjected to repeated acts of violence, including severe physical assault. The forensic examination later revealed the extent of her injuries, confirming the brutal nature of the attack. Post-mortem autopsy indicated that Eileen had been sexually violated during her captivity. In addition to the sexual assault, she had suffered multiple physical injuries, including signs of beating. The forensic experts reported blunt force trauma on her body, indicating that she had been struck with a heavy object. These injuries were consistent with torture. The post-mortem examination provided additional insights into the extent of Eileen's suffering. It was determined that the cause of death was blunt force trauma with multiple blows inflicted upon her body. The examination also found signs of sexual assault, confirmed by the presence of male DNA found on her body. Her wounds were consistent with physical torture, and she showed clear signs of being beaten severely before her death. The forensic evidence was a critical part of the investigation, as it confirmed the extreme violence she had endured. Eileen's body was discovered in a remote area alongside Allan's, both discarded callously after the heinous acts. The nation was in shock. The images of the young victims, their futures tragically cut short, haunted everyone who heard the news. Eileen and Allan's families were left in a state of disbelief, struggling to understand how such a tragedy could happen to the people so full of promise. The investigation began. The police were faced with a daunting challenge. There were no immediate clues or obvious suspects. The location of the crime was remote, and evidence at the scene was scarce. For weeks, the authorities struggled to make any progress. The initial theories ranged from a simple, random act of violence to a more complex and targeted attack. Was it a crime of passion, or could there have been a deeper motive? The uncertainty only fueled the public's fears and speculation. The theories ran wild, and the media speculated endlessly. Some believed that the crime was connected to political figures or powerful individuals. Was Eileen's involvement in student activism linked to her tragic fate? Could her political views have made her a target? Or was the reason for the abduction and murder more personal in nature, with Allan being caught in the crossfire? The police were under immense pressure, with no suspects, no clear motive, and a lack of concrete evidence. The investigation seemed to be going in circles. Tension among law enforcement grew as the public demanded answers, and the families of Eileen and Allan struggled to cope with the pain of not knowing who was responsible for such a brutal act. But as time passed, something began to surface, something that would eventually change the course of the investigation and reveal the shocking truth behind the murders. As the investigation dragged on, a new lead finally broke through the cloud of uncertainty. It wasn't a random suspect or an accidental discovery. It was something far more shocking. the police had uncovered a trail that led them to someone they never expected, a powerful political figure with ties to the crime. It all began to unfold after investigators followed the evidence to a shocking source: the involvement of members of the Philippine military and police forces. The case took a dark turn as it was revealed that Eileen and Allan's abduction wasn't the result of a random act of violence, but rather a meticulously planned operation linked to political motives. The discovery of the political conspiracy behind the murders of Eileen Sarmenta and Allan Gomez rocked the nation to its core. With powerful figures implicated, the investigation was far from over, and what followed would challenge the very notion of justice in the Philippines. As the investigation unfolded, those responsible for the abduction and murder were finally brought to trial. Members of the military and police were arrested and charged, but the true test would come in the courtroom. Would the justice system hold these influential figures accountable for the brutal crimes they committed, or would their power shield them from punishment? The public waited anxiously for the trial to begin. The case had captured the nation's attention, and the pressure to deliver justice was immense. People from all walks of life demanded that those responsible face the full consequences of their actions. However, as the trial went on, it quickly became clear that justice would not come easily. The defense teams fought tooth and nail to protect the accused, using every tactic at their disposal to cast doubt and muddy the waters. The trial became a battle between those seeking accountability and the powerful forces trying to keep the truth hidden. One of the most significant figures in the trial was Senator Ping Lacson, a former police official who played a key role in exposing the truth behind the conspiracy. Lacson's courage in standing up to the corrupt system was pivotal in bringing the case to light, and his testimony was a crucial piece of the puzzle. His involvement in uncovering the truth made him a hero to some and a target to others, as the case grew even more politically charged. Despite the revelations, the trial was not without its complications. Witnesses were threatened, evidence was contested, and the true nature of the conspiracy seemed to be buried beneath layers of bureaucracy and corruption. After years of legal battles, the trial concluded in 2000, but the verdict was far from what the public had hoped for. While some of the military and police officials involved in the crime were convicted and sentenced to prison, others walked free. The justice system, under pressure from the powerful figures involved, seemed unable to deliver full accountability. Eileen's family and Allan's loved ones were left with a bitter sense of injustice. The crime that had shattered their lives had exposed deep-rooted corruption, but the people responsible for the murders seemed to evade the full consequences. The trial became a symbol of the struggle for justice in the Philippines, a reminder that even when the truth is uncovered, the fight for justice is never truly over. A key breakthrough came when the van used in the abduction was traced back to none other than the office of Mayor Antonio Sanchez. This discovery raised eyebrows, but the real shock came when Lacson's team uncovered testimonies from Sanchez's own men, who described in chilling detail how the mayor orchestrated the entire crime. As the pieces fell into place, the gruesome truth emerged. Eileen Sarmenta had been abducted as a gift for Sanchez, and Allan Gomez was murdered to silence him. Forensic evidence, including DNA, and the van's condition corroborated the confessions, leaving no doubt about the mayor's involvement. The public, already gripped by the tragedy, was stunned to learn that the very person met to protect the town had orchestrated such a heinous act. The revelation turned the case into a national scandal, marking Sanchez's fall from power and his eventual conviction.
Paliwanag nga kung anong ibig niyong sabihin. Hindi po ako kailangan mang-rape sapagkat 17 yung girlfriend ko at 3 yung asawa ko.
Hindi po naman totoo nagbibiro lang po ako noon.
The court hereby finds all the accused guilty beyond reasonable doubt of the crime of rape with homicide.
Legacy of Eileen and Allan's story continues to inspire activists, journalists, and ordinary citizens to speak out against corruption and to demand accountability from those in power. Their case remains a reminder that even in the face of powerful opposition, the truth must be uncovered and justice must be fought for, no matter how long it takes. Eileen Sarmenta's dream of making a difference in the world may have been tragically cut short, but her legacy lives on through the countless lives she touched. Her friends, her family, and even strangers who learned about her story continue to honor her memory. Through her, many were reminded of the importance of fighting for a just and equitable society, one where power does not go unchecked and where the innocent are not silenced. Eileen's story is one of hope, courage, and the pursuit of justice, values that continue to resonate with the people of the Philippines today.